Hi everyone, welcome to a video of our first vocabulary list. This list begins on page 14 and continues on page 15. So our first word is Adam, which means human, humanity, people, person, or Adam, the first human being. And right off, you might ask yourself, do I need to know all of those definitions of Adam in English for the quiz? And the answer to that is no, as long as you can produce one of one good definition, you'll get full credit on the quiz. It's great if you know all of the definitions, but you need to at least produce one accurate definition out of any of those that are shown on page 14. Next word we have is Adama, and if you look closely, you'll see that the word Adam and Adama those two words are very similar. Adama just has that final Kametz He ending on it, and Adama means ground, land, or soil. And so both of those words come from the root Aleph Dalet Mem, which actually has a general meaning of to be red. And so people have tried to connect, okay, what's the similarity between human beings and redness and soil? And as you know, probably from the story in Genesis, that human beings were originally made from the soil. So there's this kind of a play on words, if you will. But also maybe the red has something to do with the red clay and the fact that when people are alive, they are a little bit flush. At least you can see blood coursing through their veins. They have a little bit of redness to them. Also, from this same root, we get the word Edom, which relates to the descendants of the character Esau in the book of Genesis. And there's also, you can make some connections to redness there too. Esau, excuse me, is the character that asks for the red stuff, the red, probably lentil soup, when he wants to trade away his birthright. So, um, anyway, all those words are related. They all come from the root Aleph Dalet Mem. And in Adama, we see that we just simply have a feminine ending added onto the end, the Kametz He. Sorry, in the Unicode font that I'm using, I can't make the Kametz and the He both be read, but I hope you understand that those are both part of the ending. Our next word is Berit, which means ground, or excuse me, which means covenant, treaty, or alliance. Berit. In the plural, this would be beritot, and that ot ending indicates that the word is feminine, and also the fact that the noun itself, berit, ends in that eat ending, the hirik, yod, taf ending. That's another sign of femininity. So berit is a feminine word. But it comes from the root beit resh he. And you don't need to know this for the quiz, but while we're talking about roots and beginning to talk about roots in class, it's a good thing to take note of. So if we look at the word berit and we see the beit and the resh, but we don't see any he, which is part of the root, beit resh he, but the he here is gone. And there's a little saying in biblical Hebrew among students that third he drops away. And that isn't always true, certainly, but it can often be true in biblical Hebrew. So when you have a root that ends in a he, and you tack on some sort of ending to that root to make, for example, a feminine word, the he commonly disappears. So we'll be talking about how to discern that, how to figure that out, to figure out a word's root, because that's something that's very important in biblical Hebrew. So we have berit, covenant, treaty, or alliance. Next word is goy, which means nation. We've talked a little bit about this in class. The next word is davar, which means word, thing, affair, matter, has a broad range of meanings. much like the word logos has in Greek. It can mean quite a number of different things. In the plural, we have the plural of davar is davarim. So we know from that eem ending that davar is masculine, and we don't see anything that's particularly feminine about that word, and so our default posture is always masculine. So if you don't see anything feminine about it, it's masculine. Now, Devarim is often used to talk about a phenomenon in Biblical Hebrew that's called propretonic reduction, which is a long word, propretonic. So, what does that mean? The tonic part of propretonic just means the syllable that is stressed, or the tonic syllable is the one that is stressed. So, in the word Devarim, the eem is the tonic syllable. Now, the pretonic syllable is the syllable that comes before the stress syllable. So, if you kind of remember how syllables work, in Biblical Hebrew, the second syllable is var, so that is the pretonic syllable. And then the propretonic syllable is the syllable that comes before the syllable that is the stress syllable. So it's kind of two syllables away from the stress syllable. And for devarim, it's the first syllable. The propretonic syllable is duh. Now you'll notice, if we go back to the original word here, davar, you notice the vowel under the dalet is actually a kamet, so it's a long vowel, da-var. But when we come to the word devarim, we notice that the vowel under the dalet has changed. It's gone from a kametz to a schwa. So that little phenomenon in the language is called propretonic reduction. In other words, when you tack on a vowel or tack on an ending to a root or to another word, the vowels in the original word can change. So the upshot of all that to you is I don't expect you to know necessarily that a particular vowel changes to another particular vowel. It might be helpful to know that the vowel gets shorter, so duh is a shorter vowel than da. But for you, the point is the fact that vowels can change. So when you tack on endings, vowels often change. And ultimately, you shouldn't let that bother you. That should be an expected thing to you after a while. And so you shouldn't get all hung up by the fact that, well, what happened to the vowels in the original word? Well, we tacked on an ending and they changed. So that is in essence the thing to learn from propretonic reduction. And we have that eem ending, again, indicating the masculine. And our var is the pretonic, and the duh is the propretonic. Next word is da'at, which means knowledge. And this word is actually stressed on the first syllable, so it's da'at. Now, we know that the taf ending is often used to mark feminine words, so da'at is a feminine word. But if we consider the taf to be just a suffix or a tag marking this word as feminine, what happened to our three root letters? So we have two letters left over, but we don't have three. So as you all know by now, we need three letters to make a root. So da'at actually comes from the root yada. And in this case, the first yod has fallen away. So we went from yada to da'at when then the suffix, the tav, was added on to make it a feminine word. So again, this is something that happens in the language, especially with first yod letters, certain other letters that we'll learn about, that they can drop out when suffixes are added, when words are changed to give them new meaning. So don't let that surprise you. That is something that can happen in the language. Next word is zahav, which means gold. Next word is chodesh, which means new moon, month. And from this same root, we get the adjective chadash, which means new. So you can maybe see a relationship between new moon and something new. Here again, if they give you supplementary words, like in this case the adjective chadash, that's not going to appear on the test. But it's good to notice how different words can be formed using the same root. So we have, with just different vowels, we have chodesh, which means new moon, and chadash, which means new. So sometimes it's good to compare those words, kind of take a look at them and think about their relationship and the fact that they're using the same root letters, but they're coming up with different words, but that have some associated meaning. Our next word is chokhmah, which means wisdom. And we also have the adjective from the same root, which is chacham, which means wise. So let's look at that first syllable. Now you'll maybe notice that I pronounced that hoch and not chach, and the fact that the kametz there is pronounced as hoch is due to the fact that this is a closed, unaccented syllable. So accent typically falls to the end of Hebrew words. So this is a closed syllable because it's consonant, vowel, consonant. And in this case, it's pronounced O. So it's chokhmah. Next word is kohen, which means priest. Kohen. Next word is kesef, which means silver or money. You notice that this word is also stressed on the first syllable. And when you have two segolid vowels like that in a row, this is called a segolid noun. And when you see this, the accent is always going to fall on the first segolid. So it's kesef and not kesef. Again, that's not terribly important that you know off the top of your head, but at least it's a rationale letting you know why the accent has shifted to the beginning of the word. Next word is melech, which means king, and Seah, the author, gives you a bunch of other words related to the same root, but all you have to know is melech, king, and like kesef, melech is also stressed on the first syllable because it has two segolets, two of those kind of grape-shaped uh, vowels in a row there. So when you have that case, the stress goes to the first of the two vowels. Next word is navi, which means prophet. Now we can also, actually in Biblical Hebrew, we also have the word neviah. So take a look at the difference between navi and neviah. So a neviah is a prophetess, or a female prophet, and we do have some female prophets in the Bible, in case you were unfamiliar with that fact. There is Huldah in the book of 2 Kings, and there is Deborah in the book of Judges is a Neviah. Now, you'll notice that all that Biblical Hebrew did to get this from a masculine Navi to a Neviah was add the feminine ending, and really that's the vowel and the hey there, once again. Now, this is another good example of propretonic reduction. So look at our word Navi, and look at the vowel under the nun. It's an ah vowel. But when we tack on the ah ending to make it feminine, to take it from a prophet to a prophetess, look what happens to the vowel under the first nun. It goes from a kametz to a schwa. So again, this is an example of what linguists call propretonic reduction. In other words, when you tack on suffixes to words, there's vowel changes. Next word is eved, which means servant or slave. And this word appears very commonly in the Bible. There's other words related to this, avodah, which means work or servitude. Uh, and then avad, the verb avad, which means to serve. But anyway, all you need to know for the quiz is eved, which means servant. Next we have the word olam, which means eternity or perpetuity. Sometimes I like the translation for the foreseeable future. So I don't think the ancient Israelites necessarily had an idea of infinity, that at least that mathematical idea that we do, but they. So sometimes you'll see this word translated for a long time or for the future or in the future, but and often you'll see it translated as eternity or maybe forever, something like that. So the word is olam. Tzedek, also a segulate vowel stressed on the first syllable. Tzedek, which means righteousness. And we can have the adjective righteous, which is tzaddik. But again, all you need to know is tzedek, which means the noun righteousness. Also, sometimes this appears as tzedakah, same meaning. Next, we have the word kodesh, which means holiness, sanctuary, or holy place. And we can also have the word written like this, kodesh. Every once in a while, you'll see it written like this. So here, the word is written without the mater. Here, the word is written with the mater. It means exactly the same thing. It's just two alternative spellings for the same word. And your book also says this is related to the adjective kadosh, which means holy. And our final word is kol, which means voice, like a person's voice, or a sound, or even thunder or thundering. So if it's the sound of something, you might say the thunder is sort of heard as a voice. But anyway, this is kol, and it means voice. So those are all of your vocabulary words. I hope this review has helped you understand what it is that I'm wanting you to learn from this exercise. If you have questions about what the requirements are, please do let me know. Thanks. Good luck in your studying.